When Indiana Jones first swung onto the scene in 1981, he was a new hero for a new decade. Yes, he's rooted in the pulp and serial traditions of the 1930s and the 1940s, but he was a hero for the 1980s. And those three films, Raiders of the Lost Ark from 1981, which for me is about as close to perfect as a movie can get, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 1984, super divisive movie, but definitely of its time, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in 1989, in which our heroes literally rode off into the sunset. Those movies perfectly encapsulate the 1980s. They start in 81, they end in 89. It's a story well told, completely told, which makes everything that's come after that feel hard. It's hard for me to categorize that. It's problematic for me to put them in the same mythology because they feel so different. This is a story rooted in the 1930s and the 1940s, World War II, Hitler, the Nazis, all that stuff. When you take Indiana Jones out of that, for me, it becomes something else. Listen, I sat in the theater on opening day for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, wondering why what I was seeing on screen was not resonating with my fandom. Now, this is before Disney bought Lucasfilm, before they made sequel trilogy movies that did the same thing for me. I'm like, I love this thing. Why do I not love this? So I was not going to watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I stayed home. I did not go see this in the theaters, along with millions of others. A lot of people did not go see this in the theater. It has just turned a profit. It's broken even and is now making a little bit of a profit. But this movie is not a success. It's not a financial success. Why is that? I think because we love Indiana Jones. We're skeptical of Disney, and we all know that these movies belong in the 80s. There is a certain thing as diminished returns, right? And I think Star Wars burned a lot of people. Whether you love them, whether you hate them, whether you don't care, diminished returns is very real. So I wasn't going to watch this movie, but curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to watch it at home. And I gotta say, I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I watched it. I don't know that I love it. I don't know that I'll ever love it. But the things that I want from an Indiana Jones movie are actually here. Now, I'm not going to spoil this because I don't want anybody who hasn't seen it to have anything taken away from them. I will say the first act of the film is a flashback that takes place in the classic era of Indiana Jones. We got Indy versus the Nazis. It's World War II. And they've used that digital de-aging technology, which usually doesn't work. I feel like I'm watching like a PlayStation 4 game or something. I feel it's not there yet. However, for this movie, most of the time, there were a couple of shots I was like, it looks weird. Is his face glowing? But most of the time, it looks really good. And, you know, one of the things that the actors were striking about in 2023 is the likeness rights for their faces. Like, don't put our, AI and likeness rights. And I thought that was far future technology. It was like, well, maybe in 10, 15, 20 years, that's something to worry about. No, it's here now because they've put a digital face on Harrison Ford to make him look like he's about 40. And I'm there for it. Like, I was like, whoa, I forgot I was watching like CGI, that's a compliment, but it's also scary because I can now say, like, I'm tempted. I'm like, if I could get a movie with a digital Harrison Ford face, and they've used AI to get his voice sounding like he did in 1981, like, I would watch that movie. And that scares me. That kind of bothers me because the ethics are very questionable there. There's so much about this movie that delivers exactly what I want. I think this movie exists as an apology for the Crystal Skull. Well, two things, right? I think Disney goes, well, we bought Lucasfilm. We need to leverage this IP. I guarantee the conversation behind closed doors on the shareholder calls, Bob Iger is going, we got to leverage our Indiana Jones franchise. We've got to make this as profitable as possible. It needs to be bringing us money. It's an asset. It needs to bring in money. That's not a reason to make a movie. That's a reason that the studio would greenlight a movie. That's not a reason for a movie to exist. That's not a reason for a filmmaker to make a movie. You got to have a story burning to be told. I'm not sure that this is it. I'm not sure. They've been trying to give Indiana Jones his final adventure for like 20 years. They've been working on the next Indiana Jones movie for decades now. It's a hard thing to crack because he's rooted in the 1980s and because that story has already been told and they already ended it. So anything after that needs to really justify its place at the table. I'm not sure this movie does that, but I will say I had a good time with it. All the stuff that I want, the archaeological sites, Dr. Jones, Professor Jones doing archaeological things, trekking the globe and planes and trains and automobiles, and we get that red line on the map while the music plays, the John Williams score. That's all here. Cool traps, cool devices. These movies, the Indiana Jones movies, are built around supernatural MacGuffins. The first movie, it's the Ark of the Covenant. The second movie, it's the Shankara stones. Third movie, it's the Holy Grail, you know. And then, of course, like an alien skull. We're talking about larger than life, really, really weird stuff, you know. These are fantasy movies, you know. They're adventures that have a fantasy element, supernatural element. I don't really understand the MacGuffin of this movie. I don't feel like the movie explained it very well to me. I'm just supposed to kind of go with it. But where it goes further than Aliens, you guys. Goes further than any other Indiana Jones movie has ever gone. And I don't know. I know why they did it. And I think that from a screenwriting perspective, like, okay, I get it. You give the historian this thing. I get that. Maybe a bridge too far for me. Third act, maybe too far for me. However, it's great to see some of our characters again. Harrison Ford, I would not have thought he would have had the charisma or the physicality in his 80s that he has in this movie. So I like it. Again, I don't think I love it. And I don't think that this movie probably should have been made, but this movie was made. You know, that's the difference between good criticism and bad criticism. Bad criticism says, I reject this because it shouldn't have been made. Okay, but it was. So what do you think about it? And you can't just reject all of its merits because you don't want it to exist. What's good? What's bad? That's what a critic's job is. I think that it's more good than bad. There's a few things. Look, reliance, Indiana Jones in a CGI era, hard for me. It's so rooted in practical effects. That's hard for me. The MacGuffin, I don't know. But the globe trekking, the adventure, the relationships, I'm hearing people say that it's slow. I don't think it's slow. It's taking its time to build character. And for me, who was like Raiders of the Lost Ark was one of my first VHS tapes way back in the 80s. I think that it's building a story in an old school kind of way, which I really appreciate. Maybe too long, probably 20 minutes too long. Editors out there, editors and filmmakers, because people watch this channel, you guys, tighten it up. Tighter is always going to be, give us less, leave us wanting more. You never want to overstay your welcome with a film. You never want your audience to be done before the movie is actually done. So I would just encourage all the editors out there and the filmmakers, tighten it up. Again, that's my review. I encourage people that are on the fence about this to check it out. You may not love it, but I think that there's enough there to connect us to what we love about this character. If this is his final adventure, which I really do believe it is, they're saying it is, but they kind of said that the last time too. If this is his final adventure, it's a good way to say goodbye. Acknowledging that they rode off into the sunset in 1989, and that's the real end. You know, in my mind, it's 3 movies in the 1980s. Anything after that, it's kind of like, oh, that's this extra thing. Yeah, it's there, but it's kind of off on the side. So I'm glad I watched it. I will be watching it again, and I would like to know what you think about it. So let's continue the conversation in the comments below, guys. Thanks so much. Take care. Till next time, I will catch you later.